But I do have a concern that, and I'm included in this, please, is that our audience participation is becoming perhaps too participatory on our part. And I'm open to discussion on this. But when I first joined the council, it was not participatory, and at that point, it kind of bothered me because when somebody said something that was not true, it was kind of, was not debated, and so it was just given tacit approval by having that comment made. But I think we have gone kind of too far the other way in getting into more of almost a debate basis. I mean, kind of having so much discussion that it's not audience participation, it is audience council participation. And I think maybe we should rethink that a little bit and keep it to the 3 minutes. And if there's a concern, then once again say, thank you, we'll refer that to staff and have them get back to you, or something like that.
I was thinking Saturday Night Live counterpoint.
Okay, what's Rick got?
In that kind of the same issue, I have a problem with allowing people to go on and on making blanket accusations of criminal activity against not only the police department as a whole, but city employees.
Yes.
And so they're getting their 3 minutes of fame and airtime, making accusations with no basis for fact in any way, shape, or form. And I think that we should say something. At least, you know, they have their 3 minutes, they can say what they can say, but then that we should have some statement from the council as a whole with that type of thing, that we probably have one of the finest police departments in Washington State right here. And I know what it does for morale when stuff like that is allowed to be said without a response back from the elected people.
Yep.
So
I agree. I'd say it's the hardest and most difficult part of the meeting to manage.
I'm sure.
And I've actually asked the clerk if we are legally obligated to have it on there, not because I'm not for open, transparent government, but it's something that the council has done for years. And sometimes it does distract from our current agenda. We've talked about in the past moving it to the end of the meeting because it does take up valuable time for folks that are here to speak to items that are listed and noticed. And I guess at some point there have been participants in the past who we've said, we're not going to allow you to speak because we're not making progress with you, and it's nothing personal. It's just you're coming up here and throwing out accusations because, frankly, having served on this council for 8 years, almost 9 years, we have investigated city employees. We don't tout it out in the media. We make complaints to the city manager. They are looked into. Things do happen behind the scenes, not trying to hide those, but we don't air our laundry out here for the employees' sake, legally, and our sake. So, Jeff, what do you, from a rules standpoint, is this something, Kathy, you want to have a change in policy, or?
Well,
I just mean,
I don't know that it needs a change in policy. I think it just is a procedural thing.
Okay.
But I think that in the past, I totally agree with you, Tom. I don't think that, I know I've spoken up before, and I think the council's spoken up before, saying if you have a complaint about a particular individual, then take it to the city manager. We are not, we don't manage the individual. I mean, that's his job, and Tony can certainly handle that. We should not be, like the blanket statement as far as all of the employees, or I can't remember exactly, but that's unnecessary and that's demoralizing, and that's it's just not acceptable to me, and it's not true.
Well, I guess I can also cut folks off if the council is. You've talked about a blanket statement from the council or a response to some things that are non-factual, but what's the best way to manage that? Is just say, all right, you're done.
I've said this before. It's just, give everyone the 3 minutes. I've tried very hard not to. I mean, I just stare at the floor usually because, you're just, if you start conversing with the people, you're giving them what they want. They want their attention. Yeah. And I think it's very slippery slope trying to decide whether they should be saying this or that. I understand Tom's frustration. Maybe I'm immune to that because when I first got on council, every other person was up there telling me what a horrible person I was. So I just kind of built up a thick skin towards. Yeah, it has a little bit. And let's be honest. I mean, this.
But it could rise again.
It could, and I may say something right now that could cause that.
Yeah.
it's open, transparent. People should be allowed 3 minutes to approach their elected officials. Let's face it, democracy is kind of ugly, and 9 out of 10 people that come up here are not jobs. But just ignore them, give them their 3 minutes, and let them move on.
And you
Still
know, I'm
left on
on the
my
council,
scale.
so I'm not real familiar with how the 3 minute, is this just an open forum that anybody can talk about anything?
Yes.
Or does it have to
Pretty
be
much.
directed towards the agenda item?
This is anything not on the agenda.
This is anything not on the
So
agenda?
the listed speakers, like the Plaza was listed 4A, she'll speak to 4A.
Okay,
they'll
and then
list
it's just
7A.
an open forum,
Right,
basically.
3 minutes. But it's my job, obviously, to manage, and
It's supposed to be about city. I mean, we don't want to hear about any personal problems or anything, but.
Sometimes it turns into that.
yeah, I don't want the discussion to get twisted that we're trying to deny people a voice in government. And trust me, there are times when we had a domestic violence story at the
Yeah.
Y about the Tacoma police chief, who's the most powerful person. And what I mean is the correlation of who do you complain to when you're the most powerful people in government, the city manager, the police chief. You come to us, and we have our contact information out there. So we're not trying to shut down discussion or.
And I think that
Stop
maybe you came up with the proper idea that in our city manager council form of government, it's he who's in charge of what goes on in the police department and directing investigations of and city employees and of. Maybe something as simple as, please take that information to the city manager.
And we've said that before.
Right.
Yeah, I just don't think, we should, get involved in it. And I still am not comfortable listening to broad derogatory statements about the staff. So 3 minutes, no interaction, and then,
Well, I agree with you, Kathy, on the hostile comments. Somehow that's got to be controlled. But when I first came on council, there used to be 3 lights up
oh, I
there,
remember.
red, yellow, and green. And I ran on eliminating the 3-minute rule and was elected. That was one of my main points. Because, I mean, they shut people down like you couldn't believe. That flashing light was the first time up there ever to front of
True.
the council, and you got these lights flashing at you. And if memory serves me right, I'm always tested on this.
You're all right.
I think you did too.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we're against the 3-minute rule.
Right.
And I'm still against the 3-minute rule because if somebody really has some pertinent stuff to say, I want to hear it. But Kathy's correct when it gets to the point where it's,
Being trained back and forth.
yeah, when you're making accusations against somebody's character and stuff like that, no, and I don't know. That's why we elect you.
Well, I'm happy to take care of business if you're
Okay.
basically giving me the authority to
Well,
shut it down and have my back, so I'm not
Well,
hanging out there by
I-
myself.
Oh,
the
no
way
one
it
said
reads
that.
now,
No.
We're going to leave you hanging out there,
the
but
way
I
it
mean,
reads now,
If it's personal
why you get the big
attacks, it
money.
shouldn't be allowed to run on and on and on.
The extra $200 a month.
Yep.
I believe the way it reads now, that if any councilman wants to go longer than 3 minutes, they can say, I would like to let them finish.
Well, and there are some folks that
Uh,
need a little bit longer that have brought stuff to us, but most of the time it's on the
Yeah,
agenda. or not, so. All right.
I,
Noted that I think we don't want a response. Is that the will of the council? We don't want a response. You're going to get your 3 minutes, and then if there's derogatory comments, you're done.
That's my opinion. I don't have any power over the 6 of you, so you do what you want.
but I certainly don't want the 3-minute rule.
Jeff had his hand up.
in writing.
I have just one suggestion, because I think you're all saying pretty much the same thing. There's a couple of things need to be allowed. If folks are allowed to speak, censorship isn't going to be
Right.
applicable. We can't do that. But you do get to control, and if it gets, if discussion becomes unacceptable, and you need to make that call, then you do have the right to terminate the conversation if it gets unacceptable. My suggestion is kind of consistent with everything that's been said here. Tom said, let them have their say, and after they're finished, if a response seems to be appropriate, the council members certainly have the prerogative to respond without becoming a debate. That might be a solution rather than the debate engagement. But they get their 3 minutes. Sometimes we don't like what's said, sometimes we do. And if there's a feeling, and I think this started with Dave being concerned because blatantly incorrect statements were being offered and nobody was saying anything, then you certainly are entitled to respond.
Yeah, I think
No,
we've
I'd
been
like
down
to-
this road before.
Yeah.
Let them have their say.
We were called corrupt tonight with no response. You want to let that one sit there too?
I was not. In fact, that's why I kind of went off on a little tangent towards the end. But serving with all of you for a number of years, we may not get along on every issue, but we are doing the best we can for the city. And
No one here is corrupt.
But we can interrupt any time with a point of order.
right.
At that time, the conversation stops and we ask the mayor that we think they're getting into an area.
Sure, and I appreciate it if
Whatever.
anybody wants to pipe up too. as
I was
well.
gonna do that on but my conscience, I just couldn't get through it.
Well, it's almost 8 o'clock and past it. Just kidding. Any other business of the city?
One last note on this. This would represent a change because many of the time after someone has spoken, I've wanted to express pertinent information and have been told by you, Mr. Mayor, that it's not my place to do that. So it's my understanding that if we have information that addresses the specifics of the accusation, that we will be allowed to present that at this time within a 3-minute limit. Flashing lights or not.
Well, here's what Jeff's doing, and it's been happening all night. Is he says it's up to my discretion. Is what you're telling me? Is that what you said?
It would be, and I think each of
You
you
run the
need
meeting.
to exercise that discretion on when, and I'm probably talking mostly to you, because
Really?
you are the king of debate. But you need to, decide in your own minds when you absolutely think you need to respond versus, I think I can beat that guy in this argument. That's kind of where I come from too, but that may not be the appropriate role at the time of audience participation. That is up for you folks to decide.
Well, and I'd like to add one more thing is that, I guess I wouldn't have a problem, we're picking on Dave, so we'll keep picking on him, that if he feels like there's a fact that needs to be clarified, that's fine, but then that audience member doesn't get to come back.
That's right.
And then, so we
Point,
turn into
counterpoint.
point, counterpoint, that's, they had their 3 minutes, they had their say, they're done.
Well, one thing I like about our council, and it's a balance, is we are somewhat relaxed and engaging with our citizens on a number of subjects. I think that's what makes us approachable, but we also have to abide by the facts and rules. So, all right.